Hi there, this is Tony from pianotone.ca, and in this video I'm going to be going over how to work with live sets, or you may think of these as registrations, on the Yamaha CK Series, the CK-61 stage keyboard and the CK-88 stage piano. I'll be outlining how to work with the built-in live sets that come with these keyboards, as well as how to save your own custom live sets, what data gets saved, etc. And for those out there who are new to stage keyboards and aren't familiar with things like live sets or scenes, and are wondering where are my sounds, I'll also provide a quick intro to all of that. So let's check out the live sets on the CK Series. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a brief intro on what live sets are for those of us that are new to stage keyboards, maybe moving to a CK-61 or CK-88 from something like a Yamaha P125 or a PSR E-Series keyboard, or maybe a Roland FP30, or any other predominantly home use keyboard. If you're not new to stage keyboards, then you can skip ahead if you want to the link below to working with live sets, but do note that I will be going over a couple of things in this intro that still might be helpful to you. So if you are coming from the non-stage keyboard world, which is actually where I came from, the CK Series is my first venture into stage keyboards, you are probably used to choosing your sounds from a menu, key combinations, or maybe an app, getting them all set up the way that you like them, adding or modifying effects, etc. And then if your keyboard supports it, saving all of those settings in a registration. Then you can recall this registration later to quickly load all your settings and off you go. Well, a live set is basically the same idea. You set up all your sounds and settings and save it for later recall. But the big difference that can confuse people new to stage instruments is that instead of just turning on your piano and starting with the default version of a sound and then adding effects and layers and stuff from there, with the CK Series, you are always using a live set or a registration. Okay, so when you first turn on your brand new CK, you may look at the menu screen and see CFX Grand and CFX Stereo and think, okay, it just loaded the default piano sound. Now I can start go messing around choosing other sounds. And you can, except did you notice that as I'm scrolling through these different sound categories that the voice name, CFX Stereo, is changing to Hammond organ or Rhodes piano, brass section, etc. That at the top, it still says 1-1 CFX Grand. That's because what actually happens when you turn on your CK is that the keyboard loads the first live set, so live set 1-1. And since the CFX Grand is really one of the main voices people are likely to want to use, Yamaha has made CFX Stereo, which is a stereo version of the CFX Grand, voice A in live set 1-1. So also included in live set 1-1 are two other voices. So we've got the CFX Grand. We've got a Rhodes piano on voice B. And on voice C, there's an angel pad. And I can play them all together. So this isn't really a blank slate for you that just happens to have loaded the piano's main voice. It's almost guaranteed that there will be various other settings, effects, and customization that Yamaha has set up for you for the voices in that live set. So with these live sets, you're not usually getting just a default version of any of the voices. Now, when you switch to another voice, though, then you do get the default version of that voice. So, for example, when I've got live set 1-1 selected, and I've just got the CFX Stereo voice A active at the moment, you can notice over here that it's in the effects section that the cutoff and resonance is enabled, and the attack and release is enabled, and there's an effect enabled as well. Now, if I switch this voice to anything else, and then I switch it back again, you're going to see that effect light went out. That's because now, because I've switched voices, I have the default setup for the CFX Stereo voice. If I switch away from the live set, 1-1, go to 1-2, and then go back to 1-1 again, you're going to see that effects light is back on again because it's reloaded whatever Yamaha has set up in that effects section for me in live set 1-1. So now you might be thinking, how do I set up my own sounds and live sets starting from scratch, from sounds with their default settings? Well, that's super easy. The CK Series has 160 live sets. Yamaha has pre-filled the first 80 live sets with some commonly used and recommended custom setups. Then the last 80 are empty and available for you to use with your own custom setup. So that's my basic intro into what a live set is. Now let's get to working with live sets. So the 160 live sets are organized into 20 pages, each with 8 live sets. So you select the page with the page up and down buttons. So now I'm on page 2, page 3, page 4, etc. And I can go all the way up to 20. And then within each of those live set pages, you select the live set itself using the live set button. So now I'm still on page 1, but now I'm on live set 2, so 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, etc. And if I switch pages, now I'm on 2, 4, 2, 3, 2, 1, etc. So the built-in live sets finish at page 10, live set 8. So if I scroll up to page 10, this is the last set of live sets that come with your CK. Now if I go to page 11, you're going to see init sound. These are empty live sets that are available for me to customize. If I navigate up to page 18, you're going to see that I've actually started to save a few, actually quite a few live sets already for different songs that I'm playing with my band. Now, I haven't even come close to trying out all of the built-in live sets yet, but I encourage you, when you're wanting a certain sound, you might want to look through the existing live sets first before starting from scratch, because there's a good chance that what you want might already be there. Okay, so for creating your own live sets, sometimes I do this from complete scratch, and sometimes I start with a built-in live set and then save it to a user slot that's empty, so then I can modify it a little bit more. So to start from scratch, you just navigate to an open slot. So I'll go up to 11.1, where it says init sound. And the default in any of these empty live sets, it's actually going to have the CFX stereo with its default settings as the default voice for each one of the voices A, B, and C. Now from here, you can make any modifications that you want to your voices, to any of the settings and the effects, all of that type of stuff. And then you can save your live set and then also give it a name if you want to. So just as an example, I'm just going to quickly choose some different voices here. So I'll choose a different piano for voice A. For voice B, let's put a Hammond organ in there. And for voice C, let's put in pad. And then again, I could have adjusted a whole bunch of effect settings and some other settings within the settings menu as well. And then now I've got my own live set. If I want to save it, I just hit the store button. Now it asks me to confirm if I want to overwrite live set 11-1. So I'm going to hit enter. And then completed. So now if I hit exit and I navigate to 11.2 and then back, you can see that it's brought back my settings. So then to name this, super easy. I just hit settings and I go down to name and I hit enter. You get a little bit of a guide down here as to how to work with this editor. I have to admit, it took me a little bit to get fast at using this, but once I did get used to it, which I am now because I've been using it a ton, you can edit names pretty quick. So I'm going to press 8 to clear out that init sound name, and then I can just scroll to whatever letters I want to use, and then I can press 3 to insert them. Then if I want a space, I can hit 2. So I don't have to use an underscore or anything. I can actually put a space in, which is cool. Then when I'm done, I hit enter. Then it's going to ask me, do I want to store the live set? So I'm going to say store. And then, kind of weird, it asks me to confirm once again that I'm storing it, and also confirming that I'm storing it in 11-1. So I'm going to hit enter. And it says completed. So now it says my piano tone up at the top there. Okay, so what if you want to start from an existing live set and just make a couple modifications? I'm going to go back to live set 1-1 here. That has the Rhodes and the pad. Now let's say I don't want the Rhodes in there. I want to have some strings instead. So I'm going to switch the Rhodes voice to a strings voice. And the strings are kind of loud, so I'm going to turn the relative volume down a little bit on the strings. So there, let's say that's good enough for me, and I've made any other effects changes that I want to make. Now I want to save that in a new live set, but I don't want to overwrite 1-1. So for here, when I press store, now you have to be careful here. If I hit enter here, that is going to overwrite 1-1 with my new settings. So if I wanted to do that, I could. But instead, I'm going to use the page buttons to scroll up to 11-2, and I'm going to store it there. So now it says completed. So now if I go to 11-2, you can see that it's saved my live set. And then that way I haven't overwritten the one that was on 1-1. And once again, I could go ahead and use that naming function I showed you to rename this one. Okay, so now you might be wondering what gets included when you store a live set. Basically, all of your voice settings, your effects settings, all of that kind of stuff, and then as well, anything that you've set up and modified in the settings menu. So sound, that's going to be different settings that I can set for parts individually, part A, B, and C, or I could also set common settings. Then I can also go to controllers. This is how I could assign things like what I want each of the pedals to do. Also, maybe for a live set that's an organ voice, I might switch the sustain pedal from sustain to trigger the Leslie rotary speaker speed or something like that. And then in function, this is where I can set up things like how I have if I'm going to use an external keyboard to control sounds on the CK, how I want that set up. Can also use this to set up audio trigger, which is actually a very cool thing I'm going to make a separate video on. If you've got a backing track stored on a flash drive that you've got connected to the CK, then you can actually trigger that by playing a key on the keyboard, which is super cool. And then that's actually attached to a live set for that song. So that's a very cool bit of functionality. And then I can go down to AD input. And this is how I can specify different input settings for either a mic or a line level instrument that I may have connected to the CK. Now, while I'm on this AD input topic, this is a good example of what does not get saved in a live set. So basically, any settings that I change within the setting menu are going to get included in my live set when I save it. But let's say I want to specify whether I have a mic or a line level instrument connected to my AD input. That's not within the settings menu. I have to do that over from menu. So I go into here and I go general and I go audio and then AD input type. That's where I specify whether I want this. You see how that got quiet there? That's because I switched from mic to line. Switch it back to mic and then I'm loud again. So it's kind of a shame that you can't have that within the settings menu because this doesn't get saved when I save a live set. So if I'm going to have a live set where I have, I'm expecting a mic to be connected, and then another live set that I'm expecting to have a instrument connected, and I want it line level, I'm going to have to remember to change this manually from within the menu as opposed to having it included in what gets saved in my live set. Okay, so what if you want to erase a live set or return it to its empty state? That's pretty easy to do. All I could do here, let's say I want to get rid of this 11.2 that I made. I'll just go to 3. This one's still empty, and I'll go store, and I'll just store that in 11.2 and hit enter. And then now 11.2 has been restored to its default state. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention is I've gone through all of this work creating all of these live sets that I'm using with my band. How do I back this up? Well, if I connect a USB flash drive to my CK and then I click menu and then I choose file, hit enter. Now these choices here, backup file backs up all live set sounds, including the settings for the entire instrument. Live set all file backs up all live set pages. Live set page file backs up the currently selected live set page, and live set sound file backs up currently selected live set sounds. I'm just going to choose backup file, and I'm going to hit enter. Now to back it up, I'm going to choose save, hit enter. Then it's going to give me a list of what's on my flash drive, which is actually empty. So I'm going to just choose the only choice, which is new file, and hit enter. Now it gives me the option to name this if I want, which I could, but I'm just going to accept the default CK backup and hit enter. And then now I have a backup file saved of all of my live sets on the flash drive. So now if I do this again, if I go to menu and file and backup file and save, you're going to see that it's got the backup that I already saved there. So if I made some changes and I wanted to back it up again, I could either overwrite my existing one and just keep one on the flash drive, or I could make a new file and give it a different name, and then that way I could have kind of a history of all of the different files that I've backed up. So totally up to you what you do there. And if I had to factory reset my piano one day, which might happen, I had to do that with my P125 a couple of times, then this way I've got a backup to restore all of my live sets from. And they're a lot of work to create. It would take some work to remember everything that I did on them. So super handy to have that. Now to do that, you're actually going to go load instead of save. And then you choose the file that you want to load, and then it's going to load it into your memory. I actually bought a CK-61 first, and then I traded it back in on the CK-88 to get the weighted keys. And this is exactly how I transferred my live sets that I was working on from my CK-61 to the CK-88, and it worked perfectly. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the content, please feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. That does really help me out. I've left links in the description to my playlist of videos on the CK series, as well as to some affiliate links on checking out current prices for the CK series if you don't have one yet, and also some links to some online piano training that I recommend. So thanks again for stopping by. Happy live set saving, and have an awesome day.